Hi there. This video presentation is about Gnosticism in a nutshell, but it's also about answering videos that have titles along the line of COVID-19 pandemic, plandemic, um, and such like, and all the conspiracy theories that are abounding around like mad, wild horses at the moment. A bit like the consciousness of the people that dream all these things up. The first thing to say is that if you're being chased down the road by a bull, it's no good arguing about who let the bull out of the field, because now it's simply a matter of save yourself or saved your loved ones. All right. So the blame game is absolutely irrelevant to the question of your immediate, medium-term and long-term survival. And that's really what COVID-19 is about. It's about survival. It's a bit like in a war situation, whereas it's all about surviving. But if the bomb's got your name on it, then despite all your your strategies to reduce the risk of the bomb dropping on your head, there's only so much that you can do, which is generally true of life. Now, I suppose I have to discuss COVID-19 with reference to Gnosticism and the basic Gnostic narrative about the dualism of spirit and matter, and the fact that the demiurge, or the lord of this world, has not got your best interests at heart, if indeed he has a heart at all. And some Gnostics have said that by definition the demiurge is heartless. So nature red in tooth and core, and it got me thinking about, what is Gnosticism in a nutshell? And I came up with these sort of four components here. Life's a bitch and then you die. By which I mean that life is basically never-ending suffering, and then you die, and that's an end to it. And such happinesses as there are very brief, temporary, and unsatisfactory. So you want more of the same thing, or you want other distractions in life of a pleasant nature, and you're never satisfied with what you get anyway. so dualism. So the bitch is dualistic. The bitch is not much happiness, no satisfaction to be had, and mostly suffering. So life's a bitch and then you die. And that's kind of recognized. The whole of the Gnostic narrative can be summed up by those few words there. But in the face of this dualism and suffering and unsatisfactory pleasures, chill. And this, of course, references the contemplative life of the Gnostic, which is basically to remain calm and relaxed in the face of all the shenanigans that go on in this world and that are of this world and in this world, and from which you cannot escape, and about which you can do very, very little, except on a sort of microcosmic level of being kind to others, which I suppose also arises from being chilled out, because if you're stressed, then this affects your ability to be kind to others, and in fact you're a thoroughgoing bastard to others, basically because you're depressed and stressed, really. So if you deal with the depression and the stress, then you'll be kind to other people, which is about all that you could possibly do in the face of what goes on in this world. And the third thing is, something may happen to you that is truly wondrous. And this is actually transcends even the life of the Gnostic. This is the big G, this is the gnosis, this is the experience of the transcendental, which some people have in this life. And it's a life-changing experience. The Gnostic experience, the gnosis happens to you. And a lot can be said about this. Obviously, a lot has been said about it on this channel and everywhere else. And it's wondrous. It's it's completely outside yourself. You didn't dream it. You didn't fantasize it. You're not looking for escape from this world. It just happens to you anyway. And then the fourth thing is that at death, you may experience this wonder again, and indeed you may unite with whatever the implication of this wonder is, which people have called God, for lack of another for a better word, really. So this is Gnosticism in a nutshell. And whether or not you're able to chill, I think the thing about the contemplative life is that you're chilled enough basically to not miss the Gnostic opportunity when it comes. Because if you're too stressed and depressed, then you're going to miss that gnosis. You're going to miss that something which is staring you in the face and has been all along. So really, the demiurge, what the demiurge does is merely a distraction. And that's something I suppose that's a kind of a fifth component of Gnosticism. It's all merely a distraction. And distraction from chilling and from basically gaining the experience of gnosis, which I've already covered before. So it's just that really, if you cared one jot and tittle about the demiurge and what his agencies and agents are doing right now with regard to COVID-19 and all the rest of it, and global warming and all the threats and scarcities and worries that people have, and deprivations that people suffer from, and emotional abuse that people suffer from as well. If you cared about everything the demiurge does, and let us, for example, say that the demiurge has sent COVID-19 into our midst for various reasons, one of which, for example, and this is very important to understand, although really understanding, I'm not sure that understanding this principle even helps really. You see, if the demiurge, if life gets too nice for us all, then we start to kind of thresh around looking for something other and something more. And that's when we tend to look at the transcendental, because we've got everything. We've got all our our comforts, and we've got money in the bank, and we've got pensions and savings, and we've got a mortgage, and we've got life assurance, and all this kind of stuff. So we're okay. I sort of imagine the Reader's Digest reader, sort of middle class, kind of conservative person. And he's sort of got everything really, and then he sees like an advert for a morgue, for the Rosicrucian order, for example, in the Reader's Digest, because they always used to advertise there. And the sort of person that has it all thinks, well, maybe there's something more to life than just material stuff. And he looks at the Rosicrucians and he says, yeah, maybe I'll follow the Rosicrucian path. Maybe I'll follow what the order, the Amorc order has to offer. And maybe I can, I can start to lead a more contemplative Gnostic life as a result of my association with the order. And of course, it could be that they are setting themselves up to recognize a Gnostic occurrence when it occurs. So that's one thing. So they're not, obviously the demiurge doesn't want us to do that. It doesn't want the middle classes especially to be too happy, or the working classes to be too happy for that matter. But also if life is too much of a bitch, if life is too miserable, then people begin to think, when they finished blaming the Jews and the gays and the blacks and Barack Obama and the Clintons and the Illuminati, and when they finish the blame game, they still feel pretty miserable, and they begin to think, well, this life's awful. There must be something other and something beyond myself, and beyond all these ghastly people like the Clintons and the and the blacks and the gays and the Jews and all these awful things that are happening in the world. and they begin to look around, begin to think about the transcendental, then because they're so miserable. So the job of the demiurge and his agencies and agents is to kind of make us not too happy and not too sad. And sort of like a middle path, a Buddhist middle path, if you like, between the extremes of misery and joy. So not too joyful, but not too miserable either. And there's nothing like a global threat. I think, for example, I think about the global threat of COVID-19. But the thing about the COVID-19 is actually quite clever. And this is where it comes into the sort of conspiracy theory idea of plandemic. In other words, it's planned. Well, of course, it is planned ultimately by the demiurge and his agencies, right? So the idea of COVID-19 is it provides sufficient threat and fear and economic upset to make us all pretty miserable. But you'll notice that COVID-19, unlike a nuclear war, which would make us very miserable, those of us that were left, COVID-19 hasn't actually meant the end of civilization as we know it, well, not yet anyway. And it's going down sort of slowly, so you can still sort of buy things, and you can still get high and get drunk and watch pornography and do all the things that you do to distract yourself from the misery of life. Seeking happiness here, there, and everywhere. You can still sort of do that. There's still modernity to keep you more or less happy, but there's also a lot of threat and misery and economic upset and deprivation to keep you pretty miserable as well. So the idea here is that COVID-19 makes you sufficiently miserable, but doesn't take away your happiness altogether. For you to seek solace, of course, in stuff, in matter, in modernity, in all the distractions of modernity. So you're not looking for a transcendental solution. You're not looking for heaven or gnosis or God or whatever, or angels or the Holy Spirit or whatever. You're not. You're sufficiently sort of anesthetized to the possibility of gnosis or what. Because you're not too miserable, but you're pretty miserable, but you're not certainly not very happy. But you find sufficient happiness in the internet or whatever to keep yourself anesthetized from the truth. So in that sense, conspiracy theory is obvious. But the conspiracy theories are not much help, and of course they are themselves distracting because they keep you in fear and keep you in suspicion and isolation and in more or less suspended in some kind of victim mentality. Also taking away your happiness on one hand, but keeping you pretty miserable enough to be not concerned with gnosis. So that's why in the end I sort of say I don't really care anything. If I did care about the demiurge and all his shenanigans, then I wouldn't be leading the contemplative life on one hand, which as you know I find difficult enough anyway because I have psychological problems. So I used to care about conspiracy theories, but it used to just feed my psychological problems, and then I found that I was too distracted by these to lead the contemplative life, and I was closing myself off to the possibility of gnosis in my life as a result of being stressed and depressed. Which is why I say conspiracy theories be gone. And most of them are rubbish, but most of them keep us in fear. In fact, I think there is even a conspiracy theory that all conspiracy theories are planned in order to keep us in fear, which is a great conspiracy theory if ever I heard one. The ultimate conspiracy theory, but I've covered this before on this channel. I mean, I say all this, but I know somebody in Nepal who hasn't been out of his house for 120 days. He has a little garden and 4 dogs. but he hasn't been anywhere. He lets his dogs roam in Nepal, living in Nepal. And Nepal, of course, is very infected. It's got a government which is doing absolutely nothing about anything, and just feeding people loads of cock and bull and lies about what's going on, that everything's okay and it's all just opening up again, and the infection will get worse and worse, and it will, of course, spreading from India, which they can do nothing about anyway. So Nepal is one thing, and then somebody else that my friend knows in Portugal. She hasn't been out of her little flat in Portugal for 140 days. She's got a little tiny balcony which she can go out to get some fresh air, but she literally hasn't been anywhere. And she was going stir crazy, but she's, he says, oh, well, she's 70 and got a gammy leg. But I mean, plenty of people are 70 years old and have got gammy legs, but they're still managing to get out. But because of COVID-19 and because she's in a very, very, because she's 70, she's in a very high at risk category of person. She hasn't been out of a little flat. And this is Portugal. And I've no doubt that these two stories, are repeated over and over and over, millions and millions of times from other people falling into terrible isolation. And of course, when people become isolated, they become, susceptible to demonic possession, which is another way of saying they become very depressed. And their minds begin to turn to evil pastimes and extreme internet experiences to get away from their isolation, and they begin to see ghosts where there aren't any, and shadows and conspiracies, and get more and more paranoid. Isolation is not good. We're not, as human beings, supposed to be isolated like this to this extent. But I mean, obviously, young people are still trying gainfully to go on, but lots of people over 70, which it must be millions of people, are really, really beside themselves. And of course, they remember, the days when everything was normal, which was literally last year, and they remember that their youth, which seems incredibly carefree compared to what it is now. And the shopping experience is pretty miserable. But we still have civilization. We're still buying stuff in the West. We're still buying food and all this kind of stuff. We're still buying cakes and pastries and things and other delectables. And we're still buying alcohol. We're still maybe buying drugs as well. So civilization hasn't disappeared. It's not like, sort of kind of complete Mad Max dystopia yet. But it's enough of civilization to have gone for people over 70 to be incredibly depressed about it all, and worried and frightened. And whilst young people, of course, are battling with terrible economic pressures, not only because they can't, because of children and school, and there's all the school issue, and of course most mortgages are based on double income. So if your partner hasn't got an income, the mortgage company is going to start moaning at you to repay the mortgage or else. And of course the loans, similarly, people have taken out loans on the basis of the income that they have got, and not the income that they would have had in the future, because nobody knows what the future is going to be. So there's a lot of uncertainty, and whilst there is uncertainty, there is a lack of economic investment and economic progress, and yet it's still sort of going on, but it stops, starts, and it's chaotic pretty much everywhere. So this is life. Life's a bitch, and then you die. One of the first things that Gnostics learn, really, put in a nutshell. And yet, in the face of this, the Gnostic life is one of contemplation and meditation and prayer, and being open to the Holy Spirit and the action of the Holy Spirit, and being open to the hope that faith brings, and looking outside yourself, and looking at something greater than other than yourself, and that this brings peace and it brings calm, and and you're walking down the path one day, or walking through a wood one day, or even, I don't know, just having a bath one day, and something wondrous will happen to you. which the metaphysics of Gnosticism claims that you will be united with at death. And of course, you've got to die of something. So if it isn't COVID-19, it could be global warming and its effects, or it could be economic catastrophe and depression. What can you say? I mean, life is as it is. We sort of go into silence at this particular point, don't we, really? Which is also part of Gnosticism, by the way. Plandemic, it is as ever, it is as it has always been. This is life in the lower worlds. This is the finite worlds. This is the lower worlds. This is the world of the demiurge. This is what it's all been like. And you can call it a conspiracy if you like, if that makes you feel better. Personally, I would say that would probably make you feel worse, really, because you begin to sort of get into victimhood, because to a great extent, we can seize hold of our destinies, and we can learn to adapt, and we can learn to live and thrive, and we can turn adverse conditions into moments of opportunity. We can do all the sort of stuff that people talk about, positive thinkers talk about. There's no doubt about that. But at the end of the day, you've got to die of something. And life is certainly, if not a bitch, it's certainly dualistic. We are certainly in the throes of dualism, and things are arranged in dualistic binary pairs of adversarial opposites. And that's how it is. And the Gnostics, we don't claim to know how to change all this. We can't claim that. All you can do is lead the Gnostic life, and who knows what may happen to your life, and who knows what you may experience as a result of leading the contemplative life, even though that is not guaranteed either. So I don't know if this video goes out to you or helps you. If you're feeling miserable and isolated, if you're over 70 years old and cocooning or shielding, or just staying indoors out of total fear and panic, or if you're a young person that doesn't know how to pay their mortgage back, because their spouse or their has become unemployed. We live in hard times, but we always have lived in hard times, and we always will live in hard times. And these are this sort of, everything is changing and yet everything stays the same. That's all you can conclude about the lower worlds. So I hope this sort of little video homily or whatever, makes you see life in it, or explains things, because I think it sort of helps. Gnosticism tries to explain, the problem of evil, and why bad things happen to good people. And why good things happen to bad people. It tries to explain all of this because, it sometimes helps to have a kind of explanation, and then you can say, oh yeah, all right, well, yeah, okay, it is what it is, sometimes that kind of helps. That's all I can say. And if it does help you to have all this explained to you, then then I hope that I've succeeded in my objective.